Hello, neighbors. I'm Brandy with There's No Place Like Orange, and I have some very special guests in the garage with me tonight. Before I get to all that, I also want to say Treats in the Streets is tomorrow. We saved it. We were out in the plaza today passing out 6 pallets of candy. Thank you so much, Target. And then they called at the last minute and said we could have 4 more pallets of candy. So we'll be out there tomorrow setting everything up and passing out more candy. So we can't wait to see you guys there. And now let's get to my very special guest. We have with us tonight Detective Augie, who I'm sure you guys see me all the time. I tag him in all of our crime posts. He's a detective for the Orange Police Department. He's an amazing guy. He's also the president of the Orange Police Association. And say hi, Augie.
Hi, everyone.
And I also have with us Officer Colten, who's here this evening. He's the treasurer for the Orange Police Association, as well as the a motorcycle officer for Orange PD. So very excited to have them. I'm so sorry. You guys might know I've been a little under the weather. So if I'm not as hyper as I normally am, that's probably why. But this is so important. And I really want to get down to the nitty gritty and answer all of your questions tonight because I know you guys always have a lot of them. I have been hearing and getting a ton of messages and saying what's going on in Orange in the last month. I feel like we have an uptick in crime because they're hearing helicopters over their house. I've been hearing a lot of sirens as well. When we were on with the firefighters last week, there was a helicopter going around my house our entire life. So why don't let's get started. And I want to ask Detective Augie. So tell us your role at the police department and how long you've been with us.
So thank you, Brandy, for having us. I'm Augie Rocha. I'm a police detective with the City of Orange Police Department. I am in charge of traffic investigations. I've been with the police department with Orange 20 years, altogether almost 24 years in law enforcement. And I've been the City of Orange Police Association president for the past 4 years. So there you go.
Wow. Officer Colten.
So my name is Officer Colten Ivins. I have been with the City of Orange Police Department for 10 years now. I currently work in the Traffic Bureau. I am a motor officer. One of my duty assignments within the Traffic Bureau is I work commercial enforcement. And then both Augie and I are also on our mate team. So that's all about me.
Awesome. Okay. And why don't you tell us a little bit about, okay, so when I was in the live with Garrett, he said he thought we had our own police department for 40 years. How long has the Orange Police Department been around?
So it was 1930s when we actually became our own city municipality, our own police department. And we started obviously back in the area of East Chapman, where City Hall now sits. And since then, we have grown until what we are today, roughly about 161 officers, to include police detectives, patrol, our motors, our narcotics detectives, our bike team. So there's so many different programs that we have within the police department to keep our city, safe the way that we have.
Awesome. So we've been around a long time. And okay, do you guys want to get into let's get into crime reports and calls. I know I get a lot of questions about that all the time. So about how many calls do we get into the police department every year?
So every year from 2022, we received approximately 139,000 non-emergency calls, about 49,000 911 calls. Our officers responded to a little over 91,000 calls for service. Took
91,000 calls? How many is that a day? Somebody do the math on that. Divide that by 365.
Yeah, about a day that's about plus or minus a little over or under 300.
300 calls a day. Okay. Something I know from doing a Citizens Police Academy. How many police officers do we have on at a time in the city of Orange?
So that all depends on the time and it depends on the day. Like during your daytime, you have your patrol officers, you'll have your police detectives, you have motors, you have our bike team. So not to bore you on some of that stuff, sometimes we could have as many as 40 officers within the police department ready to answer to any type of major emergency. But usually patrol officers are the ones that handle the initial calls. And if any additional officers are needed, we can go ahead and, dispatch either our motor officers or bike team. Even detectives can respond to any type of emergency that additional officers are needed.
So I was told that we have roughly 10 officers on at a time patrolling the city. Is that about right? So the rest of those 40 would be in office available for an emergency, but out patrolling would be 10.
That would be the ones answering the calls for service, as in, a traffic accident. A patrol officer will respond, and somebody like Colten will be responding from our traffic bureau to assist with the traffic collision. So roughly 10 to 12, 10 to 13, depending on what time of the day those calls are coming in.
Do you guys beef up for like Friday nights and Saturday nights, things like that? Or when would you say that we have more officers on?
So sometimes you have your cover shifts or your shifts that overlap. Your swing shifts. They start roughly about 1 o'clock. So sometimes you'll have the day shift and swing shift together, and then same thing with the swing shift and graveyard together. So you can have overlapping shifts
Oh.
with additional officers.
I see. Okay. And so I did the math on this one night. Apparently, we have about just over 139,000 residents in the city of Orange. The thing that makes me nervous when I had learned that we only had between 10 and 12 officers on at a time was that's roughly one officer for every 10,000 people in the city, which to me seems nuts. So I know we've always had, we're funded or we're budgeted to have 165 officers in the city of Orange. But for a long period of time, we had a hiring freeze because we've always run a budget deficit, apparently, since as far back as 2008. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Ask the question one more time.
So we've had a hiring freeze. At what point did we start a hiring freeze due to the deficit? What was our crime like at that time? And when did we hire additional officers?
So I can't tell you the exact date when the hiring freeze started. I know that in 2008, when we had the Great Recession, cities across our nation started having issues with finance and revenue, and so I think that's when it kind of started. And then from my understanding, when like my group from our academy got hired about 10 years ago, is when Orange started kind of hiring more officers to kind of fill those roles that hadn't been filled for years.
So when it came to additional officers, that's where we were able to actually put more emphasis on some of our special programs. Our bike team, our special enforcement detail, our undercover unit, things like that, that we're able to address, crime, not necessarily in a black and white that you would see, but it would be in, a plain vehicle and things like that would be in our neighborhoods, and we were able to attack crime before it happens, or be able to track individuals that are out there, committing crimes, and then we're able to arrest them and send them to jail.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what the bike team does? Because it's the heart team, right?
So the bike team, going back to, like, I was in the bike team in my previous agency long time ago, and you would call them like somewhat like the ninjas. They're the ones that can ride a bike through a neighborhood. You won't know that they're police officers until they're literally right behind you if you're up to no good. But they were the ones that would get into the neighborhoods, into usually the higher crime neighborhoods, and address literally very personal calls. As in, if you had cars that are being broken into, let's say, like, the old, the outlets or the block, they would ride their bikes through there, and individuals that are out doing crime, they're looking for the black and white that everybody recognizes as a police officer or a police vehicle, not looking for somebody on a bicycle. Next thing you know, they're on top of them and they're catching them, on the actual committing the crime. But now the bike team augments our heart team, and they deal with a lot of the calls for service would be your quality of life calls that that we get on a daily basis.
And would you say quality of life? Would that be the unhoused people?
Yes.
Nobody wants to say homeless anymore. Okay, I see a lot of you guys asking some amazing questions on here as well. So we're going to totally get into Measure Z and everything that means for the police department. I want you guys, I think it's so important to have an understanding of everything that our police officers do for us because it's so much. So we actually have a measure on the ballot, not Measure Z, but measure, is it 36 or Prop 36?
Prop 36,
This is a very important proposition because Prop 47, when did Prop 47 go into effect? Was that in like 2016, I think?
14 or 16. It was quite that time.
And what that proposition did was made it so that people could go in and steal up to $950 worth of merchandise without any repercussion. It's essentially a misdemeanor, right?
Yes.
So you could write them a ticket. There's no point in, you can't arrest them and take them down to jail because they will be out faster than you can actually get them in, put into jail. No point. So we took away a valuable tool for our police officers to be able to enforce crime in all of our neighborhoods. I did my during Citizens Police Academy, I did my ride along, and our first call that morning was to the marshals in West Orange. A gentleman had been going in there every day, stealing stuff, walking out with piles of stuff, spitting on the employees, screaming profanities at them. And the manager was fed up with it and said, "We need to do something. He's in here every day." And Officer Phil, that I was with, essentially said that, there's very little that we can do. You guys can only enforce, you have your toolbox and you can only enforce what the state allows you to enforce. So it's so important to vote yes on Proposition 36. That's right, 36.
36, that is correct.
And what that will do is, if you guys have read through any of that, it will increase punishments for people that are going in with these crimes. Also, is there anything on there related to drugs? Because I was told that, literally you could go down, I hope you don't do this, but you can go down to the plaza and smoke crack, right? And it's a ticket.
Well, yes, we have had a decriminalization of the hard drugs such as heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine. For now, the usage, possession, it is a citation. It is a misdemeanor violation, which the individual will get a citation or get taken to county jail. But like you said, by the time they're processed, we're back to the station. I haven't even written the report, and they're most likely already going to be out. So yeah, the harsher punishments for the violations of the law are the ones that we need, so individuals can hopefully change their lives as they're in jail and getting the proper help that they might need.
I also, so we learned that you guys, the OPD, had to hire jailers when all this started happening and we had an uptick in crime, because if we only have 10 to 12 officers on at any given time and multiple officers are down trying to book these guys at Orange County Jail, you could be down there for hours trying to get someone booked. So we're paying officers and we don't have enough officers here. So we instead hired jailers that literally all day just transport people to the county jail.
Yeah, our jailers are great support staff for our officers because, to your point, that's keeping our officers in service in the field, and it's not tying them up for hours at a time down at jail trying to get somebody booked.
I also want to add, I'm sure you guys have heard me say this 20 times on this page, but the reason that I started all this was because we had a ton of crime in our neighborhood. We had a peeping Tom. My best friend's house was broken into twice in the middle of the night. My husband's car was broken into. We had umpteenth catalytic converter stolen. I had a homeless guy trying to smash my car with a shopping cart with the babies in the car with me. So it just was rampant in our neighborhood. And I contacted the Orange Police Department because the guy that broke into my best friend's house kept going back. He had stolen their garage door opener out of their car that was locked and kept going. So bring your garage door opener in with you at night. He opened the garage, and that's how he was able to get in the house because they have an attached garage. And he was going back every night at 3 to 4 in the morning, and they could see it in the camera, him trying to unlock the garage door. Well, her husband said, "That's it. I've had it. I'm going to sit in my car tonight with a shotgun." I don't know if you guys know this. And so I called you guys and I called the non-emergency line and I said, "Help. this is what we're doing. So they had undercover officers out there parked, and they got the guy. And when they pulled him over, he said, "Oh no, I'm the newspaper delivery boy," but he had no newspapers in his car. So, and he had stolen a ton of stuff. So that's how I fell down this rabbit hole. And I will say, in my neighborhood, since we've hired the additional officers, I have seen a complete 180. We have no homeless people in our neighborhoods. I haven't heard of any crime at all in our neighborhood. So I am so I'm so thankful for you guys that you're here. And the last thing that I would ever want to see is for the city to cut you guys. We just can't, right? Our population's growing. These are crazy times that we're living in, especially if something like Prop 37 doesn't pass. We definitely cannot cut our resources to our police.
Yeah, and that's a great example of how the service that we provide as a police department benefits the community, because we're able to respond out to those requests by our citizens and help address those concerns. And it just speaks to the efficiency that we can provide our community.
Oh yeah, it's a ton. And I know that if you guys ever want to do a neighborhood watch in your neighborhood, please send me a DM. I will send you all the information. It is so valuable. I actually want to start doing something. I'm having this idea that I want to do the neighbor challenge, where you just get out and meet your neighbors, because I'm sure your neighbors are watchdogs and you may not even know them. And so if you get out and introduce yourself to your neighbors, you create kind of like this page essentially, right? You have a tribe of people that are all looking out for each other that can also be your eyes. And the police are so happy to help you do that. We also recently just got Flock, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about Flock? It's really cool.
I'm gonna just tell you a little bit of what I know. I know that there's cameras that are throughout Southern California that law enforcement use to track uh, crime. As an example, you have let's say a bank robbery, and you have the individual that robbed the bank get into a car, and we have a license plate. Just with the license plate, we're able to put it into this program, and all the cameras that are part of that flock system immediately activate within that area, and you can actually track the individual as they travel throughout. Either the city, a freeway, wherever they get out. Those cameras are looking for that specific license plate. So it is a very valuable um, resource that we have. I can tell you personally, through a medical emergency, that we're able to find an individual that was having like I said, a medical emergency through that license plate, and the individual was here in Orange, and we were able to find them in almost outskirts of LA and Orange County, all by using that system. So it's not just a crime resource. It can be for anything. I mean, that we have children that go missing, older folks that go missing. Somebody could be having, like I said, like a medical emergency, they were last seen in a certain area. And like I said, if you know the license plate, we're able to actually use that to actually address, that emergency. So.
Yeah, it's a great tool and resource that we can use for a variety of purposes, from finding missing persons, like in that example, to finding stolen vehicles, finding suspicious vehicles, and help us respond to and locate people.
And just so you guys know too, that program was paid through, because we didn't have the money. It was paid for with a grant from the state of California, right? That Chief Adams advocated for us to get that money. I believe it was about $425,000. Is that somewhere roughly in there?
I couldn't speak to the amount. That would be Chief Adams' question, but
Mhm.
yes, it was paid through a grant. And we are very fortunate that we do have several grants that we use to actually patrol the city of Orange and address certain problems. I know that there was a question regarding some of the grant money, specifically for Colten and I. We work in traffic. The grants that we get, that's how we're able to pay for our DUI checkpoints. That's when we do different programs like that we're able to, try to address, the possible crime that can happen by somebody, driving intoxicated that could lead to, an injury or a death. So, but those are paid through the grants that we get.
Yeah, the Office of Traffic Safety provides us with several grants. And those grants, one of those is for our DUI checkpoints. So in order to pay for our DUI checkpoints, we use those monies that we get through the Office of Traffic Safety, OTS. It also pays for DUI enforcement and saturation throughout the community. And there's several other things that it does as well. It allows, like, for example, in my role as a motor officer, I'm able to go out and enforce primary collision factor issues. So that's like running red lights, running stop signs, things that cause collisions. We get monies through that grant for. And
That's amazing. I
yeah.
didn't know that. Oh, wow. Okay.
That's not the only grant too that we have. We have grants that are paid through the state of California to help with tobacco related issues, with probation parole issues, and for alcohol beverage control issues.
So I know one of the things that, we have our lovely, plaza and our restaurants. One of the programs is called Know Your Limit. And that's where we will have officers out there with our preliminary alcohol screening devices, and we engage them and we kind of get them to find out, like, hey, how, it's totally voluntary, but we tell them, like, hey, you've been out here for dinner. How many drinks have you had? Do you feel that you're safe to drive? And people will be like, yeah, but I have 2 beers, or I've had a glass of wine with dinner. It's like, okay, well, you feel you're okay to drive? Voluntarily blow into this machine and you can figure out, it won't lie, on where you're at. And people will be surprised that, like, oh, I had a glass of wine, but I didn't have anything to eat throughout the day. Now that glass of wine gets that individual over the limit. So it's engaging individuals to just know on what intake of alcohol into the system, what it can lead to, you, or possibly being intoxicated, possibly being pulled over, getting DUI, and of course, the inevitable possible collision that can hurt yourself or others.
Yeah, and through that grant, that's a service that we're able to provide our community, and oftentimes people see us in roles as enforcers of the law, but we also have roles as education too. And so that's one grant that we're able to actually go out, engage our community, and educate, which is a fantastic thing to be able to do.
You guys are talking about this. I had 1,000 thoughts run through my mind. First being when we did the Citizens Police Academy, another plug for that. We did this drunk test. So they had us literally put on like beer goggles and then try to walk. It was hilarious. And then we did the finger test, we watched our eyes and our pupils. So every time my Nana has an extra glass of wine now and tries to drive, I'm like, Nana, let me see your eyes. You can't drive. Anyway, so let's get into our DUI stats, because they're pretty shocking. I heard it talked about at City Council about Officer Patel. And let's talk about DUI stats in the city of Orange.
Yeah, so Officer Patel he's one of our motors. He was assigned to our DUI team, and he actually won the award, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Award, as top cop in both Orange County and the state of California. He's a very proactive and efficient officer in detecting DUIs and drunk drivers. And so he was able to save a lot of lives through his effort.
And how many DUIs did he have last year?
I believe it's like 306.
Yeah, a little over 300.
Yeah, over 300.
306. Are you guys hearing that? One officer, 306 DUIs. It's like almost one a day. And that's not for the total. So what was the city total? How many DUIs do we have total?
Oh, that I wouldn't be able to tell you. I wouldn't know, because I know we do have active patrol officers.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you when I was on patrol, it was just something that I was attracted to, working the east side of Orange, and you just go out there. There was, I guess, my trifecta was 3 DUIs in one night, and a 10-hour shift. And this is back in the day when you were process them, you take them to jail, you book them, you come back to the city, you go 10-8, and then you do your traffic stop, and you do that all over again. So
yeah, and in combination between Officer Patel, all of our other patrol officers, and our DUI checkpoints, we made 658 DUI arrests in 2023.
There you go.
658 DUI arrests in Orange. And why? So I have a lot of people that say all the time, "Oh, it's because we have too many bars in Orange." And when I heard Chief Adams give the report when the city was accepting the grant money so that we could fund these DUI programs, he mentioned that it's because we are between two major freeways. So a lot of times when we're making arrests, we're arresting people from Anaheim, Garden Grove, Fullerton. So it's not necessarily from people in Orange. And I'm wondering, so we recently just had, you guys heard me talk about this, the mother that passed away due to the drunk driving accident a few weeks ago. And do you know, was that person in that accident, was he from Orange? The drunk driver?
It was.
He was. He was an Orange resident.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, you guys, it's so sad. It hurts my heart so bad. Do you know, is he in jail at this time?
He is.
He is in jail and he's 18 years old, right?
Mhm.
His life is over. His life's over. And that family and that mother's life and her 3 daughters, their lives are over. That breaks my heart. Anyway, the thing that really upsets me is because it could be me. So, and we don't want that kind of stuff in our city, which we definitely hashtag fund the police, right? Um, okay, let's get into the rest of the crime report. So, if you look at the crime report, what do you see what's trending between say 2020 and 2023? What do you guys notice in our crime rates?
Well, you went back. Let's go back to that Prop 47. So when you have, weak uh, laws to be enforced, you have individuals that go into jail and they're out within a couple hours, back to do the same thing. I can talk about when I was in patrol. There was times that I arrested an individual 3 times in a 10-hour shift because you would take him to jail, he would get out, somehow would come back to Orange, and next thing you know, he's breaking into a car or walking in through an apartment complex or walking into an office building. So that uptick of individuals not being able to answer for their crime, that's the big thing right there. You have individuals that just they come back out, and there's no
No
like
recourse.
no recourse. Like a child, you give them a timeout. You make them remember what they did and what was wrong, and hopefully they won't do it again. Um, that's what we've seen. We just have a lot. We do have more people in Orange too, so we have an influx of people coming into the city with, our building of apartment complexes and things like that. So
Oh yeah, the state's wanting us to increase housing all over the place, like
mhm,
the AT&T building. It's popping up everywhere.
mhm.
That's a lot more people in Orange. I don't understand how people think we can, you know, get along with less officers and not be affected by it, especially with our population increasing like this. You guys, I hate to so everybody on here is so anxious for us to get into Measure Z right now. They're all asking for it. Measure Z, Measure Z. Let's talk about it. Um, okay, so first question, a no on Measure Z and all these specialized units will go away or will they be diminished?
So,
Go ahead.
yeah, the city manager has had conversations with our chief, um, basically saying that, hey, if this measure does not pass, then the police department will be adversely affected. We make up a significant amount of the city budget, and you can cut out other departments within the city completely and still not be able to effectively control this structured deficit that's coming our way. So, without a yes vote on Measure Z, without the Measure Z funds, then our city, the deficit is just going to continue to grow over the next 5 and 10 years. So we desperately need these monies to basically keep our city running and be able to support all of our divisions within the city of Orange itself.
So
So let me just add just a quick thing, and this is for every city. Your public safety, your police and fire, it's roughly anywhere between 60 to 70% of your total city budget. Your public safety, and that's for every city. So if this measure does not pass, we're cuts will have to be made, unfortunately, and there's no way that you can, like you said, you can close the libraries, you can let the parks, get dirty and things like that, that's still not going to make the deficit, shorter to the point that we're going to be able to continue to, function as a full service city. So full service city is your own police department, your own fire department, and the Orange Police Department. We answer how much do we do? 100 and how many calls for service? 138, almost 138,000 calls that we received in a year, and we respond to every single one of them. Sometimes some of them take a little bit longer, but they understand that's with 161 officers that we have now. Less officers, you do the math. How that is going to be. Our priority one calls, our emergency calls, we'll respond to them, and right now we're roughly just under 4 minutes to respond to an emergency call. If we have officers throughout the city, that time can be a little bit shorter, just like the fire department says. So if you have a firehouse that is, on the east side of Orange, and and there's no firehouse, open on the north side of Orange, that's going to be, it'll take longer for the fire department to respond. Same thing with us. If we don't have somebody on the east end of Orange and we have an accident or an emergency, some other officer from another side of the city is going to have to respond, which the response time will have to increase. So that it is a direct reflection. If this measure doesn't pass, the cuts will come, and unfortunately, public safety will have to be cut in some way. That is up to the fire chief and the police chief to deal with the city manager. And when it comes to that.
Okay, I'm going to answer some of these tough questions because I think it's important. I don't want them to think that we're ignoring these. Will you scroll up a little bit to so there's somebody on here, analogy. Playing people who need affordable housing is a disgusting scapegoat. I have a lot to say about this, only because I'm very protective of our lower income families in Orange. I actually do a lot with them and try to help them. As you guys know, I grew up living in a car with my mom and my sister. We had a lot of organizations help us, including the Girls and Boys Club, the YMCA. I sold candy bars door to door to pay for my after school care because my mom worked all day, and I helped take care of my sister. So anyway, probably not why I'm too shy to do this. Would you like a candy bar? But I want to answer that question. So for those of you, there's a ton of fake news being spread like wildfire. And the fake news that's being spread is by Wilson Automotive and being paid for by the OC GOP, which is the Republican Party. I'm sure some of you got texts about this tonight. I shouldn't say any of this, but I'm going to because it's important. They have now spent $900,000 into a political action committee to fight this tax. I'm getting mailers every other day, and it's saying that it's going to increase the average household. It's going to cost them $500 a year. That means that these people think that the average household is spending $100,000 a year on shopping and going to restaurants. So yesterday I met with the opposition, or met with the No on Measure Z folks. They want to get on here and do an Instagram live and talk to you about everything that they had to say. And I wanted to meet with them first and give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they know something that I don't know, right? I wanted to hear them out. So I did. And you know what they said? This man in particular was on city council for 16 years, since 1996. And he said the city of Orange has always run a deficit, that we're fine to make more cuts. We would be fine with 140 officers, that we still have a lot of cuts that can be made, including closing and shutting down all the libraries and parks and bathrooms at parks and the senior center and the youth programs. And I said, so you mean to tell me that you know that this is going to affect lower income families the most, and you guys are still fighting this as if you are helping them? It is fake news all across the board. And he said, well, they're spending money as well. He said they'd be spending probably $100,000 a year. I said, these people probably aren't spending $10,000 a year. These are people that are on a fixed income and a budget, that eat at home, are smart with their monies, and save to be able to take their kids back to school clothes shopping and things like that. They're probably not spending $10,000 a year. So if you spend $10,000 a year in Orange, guess how much money that is? That's $50 a year. If you're living in an area in East Orange where you have uptick in crime, you're dependent on all these city services, you're dependent on the youth program and discounted rates to be able to have after school program for your kids, this is directly going to affect you. So anyway, that's my soapbox. That's my rant, but that's the straight facts. And he said that we could close libraries. He said, well, the kids that are using those computers after school to go to the library and need those computers, they don't need to go there. They can go and use the computers at the school. And I said, I don't understand why you guys are fighting the sales tax in Orange so hard and not fighting it anywhere else, like in Buena Park, where Wilson Automotive has 9 car dealerships and a 1% measure on the ballot. One, he had no idea about any of that, didn't think Wilson Automotive had any dealerships there. And he said that they have a lot of money because they have Knott's Berry Farm. They don't. They have a 1% measure on the ballot. And I said, the only thing that I can come up with is that Mark Murphy, Vicky Murphy, Fred Whitaker, the OCGOP, they have been controlling our city for so long. You guys can go back to all city council meetings and watch this. People in Orange fought so hard to get Mark Murphy out of office and get Dan Slater where he is so that we could turn our city around so it wasn't being controlled by these people. If you go back and watch the things that have happened in the city during that time, the people that got us into this deficit are those people. They're the people that have voted to have additional city employees, never mention the city deficit, knowing that we've had it for 16 years at least. And those are the ones that are telling you that they're protecting you. They're literally not. And I said, do you think that the reason that they are doing this is to literally stick it to this council and show them that they are still in control of this city and to punish our current council and city staff? And he said, yes, that's correct. So I shouldn't say all that, but that's the truth. So when I hear comments like that, like this is not related to low-income families and housing and stuff like that, it absolutely is. So don't be fooled. That's exactly what it is. Anyway, I'll get back on track. I'm sorry, guys. This has nothing to do with the police association. Anyway, okay. Let's get into let's see. The GOP hate everyone who doesn't have a country club membership. I don't know about that. I don't have a country club membership. Why is it the city can't stay on budget? Is it our fault or something?
So I can tell you that Orange, from what I've known since when I was, a kid in high school and college, Orange was just a really nice, city to come to because it was the old Orange, the old town Orange. It's a very nice place to come. And Orange has remained, as kept that that jewel of like, hey, we're old town. We want to keep the small town feel. But unfortunately, the economy continues no matter how you want it the city to feel. Our economic development in the city has not kept up with the economy and the rise, of inflation and everything like that. So our economic development within the city has not, you know, received or gained, the amount of money that we need to actually continue to provide a full service, the full services for the city that we have. As in, there's other cities that, you can have a pothole and it could be not filled for months. And, and you have the individual that pothole, he goes over it every day. He goes out and actually buys the stuff to fill in the pothole. Not so in Orange, and I'm just saying, just as an analogy, streets will come out, they'll fill the hole. In other words, if there's a problem, you call somebody in the city and it gets rectified. For the police department, you call, you have an issue, you have a situation, whatever the case might be, we show up. We show up and we answer those calls. The one thing that when people call the police department is because they are looking for an answer that they have not been able to find. They have an issue, they have a problem, and we show up. We're that face of hopefully that they can trust, that we're there to, either help them with that situation by giving them advice, giving them resources. We do arrest people. So taking that individual out of there and hopefully getting the other half of that family into a better situation. And that's what we do. We're a police department. We're people. We respond to people and people's problems. The more people we have, the more resources we can give to the people. The less people that we have, the less officers that we have, the less services we're going to be able to provide.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I want to bring up something too. Your guys' police cars. So when I went and did that ride along, I mean, it was a very old police car. I got in there and I'm like, Officer Phil, what's going on in here? Is this thing going to make it? You're the person chasing down the criminals. And it was probably like a 1990 Ford Explorer or something, right? What are your guys' cars?
We do have, you know, recent, purchased vehicles, but like anything, it costs money. We do have some older vehicles, and the vehicle I drive is older than some of our officers. But it still works, still turns on, it still gets me to where I need to go and be able to do my job. But yes, our vehicles are on 24/7. You really think about it.
Yeah.
So you go from a day shift to a swing shift to a graveyard, and then it starts over the next day. So it's a lot of use that you get out of the vehicles.
Definitely. And so I saw in going to the city budget, we have deferred a ton of maintenance. So you guys, we see complaints all the time, that our streets do look terrible. We need new pipes. Our city is a very old city.
Mhm.
And so we have a ton of deferred maintenance. We have one guy in the city that actually is graffiti abatement, right? And that guy is so fast. He will be out there within 24 to 48 hours to help with graffiti. He's also on there to be cut, as well as code enforcement. Um, which is a whole nother can of worms because we really just added those code enforcement officers that we fought so hard to hire. But yeah, so we've always run a deficit, not just according to the city, but also according to the person on city council that is no on Measure Z. We've always had a deficit, and how we do that is by not hiring people. But when we talk about wanting to get things done in the city that are so important, that takes people. Can you think of instances at the city, even with city staff or with police officers, where there's been things that you guys have wanted to do and you can't do it because you don't have people to do it?
Well, that's I can only talk about what we deal with in the police department. Like you said, people. We're people, and there's individuals that we get sick. You yourself was feeling under the weather this morning. It happens.
There's only one me, Augie.
That's right. At the end of the day, for us, if we are low on staff, we still need to staff, those positions to respond to calls for service. So, the like you brought up graffiti, when I worked in gangs, that was a very hot topic that, you want to get the graffiti down as quick as possible because you don't want that free advertisement for whatever gang put that up there. So you want to keep the city clean. But like you said, some of those programs will go away or will be cut just because we just have no money to fund those programs. So
Including so the hard team, they also go because they're on bikes, they can go into the riverbed as well, right? And clean up our unhoused and try to get them help, which is one of the huge complaints that they had at the strategic planning meeting was one was keeping the city safe, and number two was the unhoused issue, which I think you guys have done a great job with.
Yeah, I think effectively, that's why we have the specialized teams like the bike team, like the heart team, and we've been very fortunate that so far we haven't seen any cuts to the police department, and it's allowed us to stay effective. And our hope is that we can continue to be effective within the community. We can continue to have those teams like the heart team, like the bike team, and so many other teams that can respond out to the issues within our community and actually effectively resolve those issues or work towards resolving those issues. And so, with drastic budget cuts that could potentially come in the future, that effectiveness is going to be challenged. And so then the service that we're able to provide as an agency is going to start diminishing. And that's the unfortunate part. We don't want to see that diminish. We want to see our police department grow, prosper, so that we can continue to provide that service to our community.
Can you tell us about how many officers have we lost since the budget deficit was announced?
So this year, there's been 4 officers that have left our agency for many different reasons. We can't say it's because of the measure, personal, decisions. At the end of the day, they're choosing, what's better for them, and they're seeking employment elsewhere or not being police officers at all. It all depends on what they are experiencing through their life. But it is hard being a police officer, especially with the lack of support that we see it. We've seen it since 2020, even before. So when we hire police officers, the individuals that we hire, they come at we have a high threshold when it comes to who we're going to hire because we want the best and the best. We got to be able to keep them employed by us. We want the best responding to your call for service, to your emergencies, and those are the ones that we're trying to keep. Budget cuts may come. We don't know what's going to happen. We're not trying to scare anybody. We're just trying to speak what the possibilities of what it can lead to.
Let's answer one of these questions from same person, analogy, or analogi. The police budgets have never been cut and crime keeps going up. Why? So do you guys want to talk about the crime report and are we trending up or down since we hired the additional officers?
Well, I cannot say exactly if we are trending up. Usually, every March, the chief of police, gives his report, to city council to let them know where we sit when it comes to our crime stats and whether crimes have gone up, have gone down. What I can say is we are very active as a police department addressing crime. There's, like I said, different groups within the police department. If we have an uptick of traffic collisions in a certain area, our motor officers get deployed to those certain areas to address those situations. Same thing goes for any type of uptick in crime, where our undercover units go out there, our police officers flood the area and actually address, those crimes that are happening. So,
Yeah, and I think that's like, for example, props like Prop 47, that, and also if you want to go back to like AB 109, like those are all measures and props that drastically affected the state of California, not just Orange. And so when you have felonies that are on the books that then get pushed down to misdemeanors, and you have officers going out and contacting these individuals, making arrests, and they get a citation instead of taking to jail, that individual is immediately back out of police custody and could potentially reoffend again. That's kind of the dangers of limiting our effectiveness as police in general. And so there are certain sections we are able to arrest for, take those individuals to jail, but they might get released from jail even before we're able to make it back to the city. And so it's kind of a revolving door, that kind of just reinforces the fact that we need to stay where we're at as a police department as far as our numbers go. We need more officers out in the field. We need experienced officers out in the field, and we need to be able to retain experienced officers here in Orange so that we could continue to be effective, make those contacts, make those arrests, and hopefully dissuade people from committing crime in Orange.
So I was told that it costs us about $80,000 a year or $80,000 to hire and train a police officer. And I see that we have all these neighboring cities that are posting. I've been sharing with you guys on stories from Tustin, Anaheim, Santa Ana. Some of the cities pay a little bit more than our city does, like Anaheim or Tustin, but we're right in line, I believe, with Santa Ana. But they're offering these giant hiring bonuses, like Anaheim Police Department, Tustin Police Department, 40,000, Santa Ana 20,000. So, what do you guys have anything to say about that? Like, or is it the potential for us to lose officers? I know we've lost a couple of officers to Anaheim recently.
Yeah, and there's that potential. We have to stay competitive to be able to keep that individual who's top of the class, because we want that officer that's getting A's, who's he's going to be a solid, and he or she's going to be a solid officer for our department. And so in order to do that, we have to stay competitive with the other surrounding agencies so that we can continue to attract good people who make good decisions on a daily basis for our community. So, a lot of agencies do have where we sit about median in the county right now. There are agencies that do pay more than us and have hiring bonuses. And that's basically their city saying, hey, we want those experienced officers. We want those high quality individuals in our communities, keeping us safe because, they're part of their mission as a city is their public safety, keeping their residents safe. And so as an Orange, we want to stay competitive so that we can continue to attract the right people here.
Awesome. Um, okay, Allison Marie said, if there has been no cuts to the police department, then why measure Z? That's exactly right. There have been no cuts to the police department. We have instead, we've had hiring freezes with them at times, or haven't gone through certain raises and things like with the fire department that they experienced for about 10 years. And then also, if it doesn't pass, so right now the city is currently borrowing money from catastrophic funds to float us through till the election to see if the measure passes. If it passes, we have to pay back those catastrophic funds within 2 years. That's a state of California law, maybe federal law, but we have to pay those funds back. So if it doesn't pass, we're in a world of hurt because we still need to pay back that money. And that's why we will have to cut everything across the board. Essentially, you could shut down everything, the library, senior center, youth center, all the programs, and it still wouldn't be enough money to balance the budget. There's absolutely no way to do it without cutting public safety.
That is correct. When it comes down to us, meaning the police department, not having any cuts, that is currently, like you said, based on hopefully this measure, being passed. That's just to be, status quo at the very end, to be able to balance the budget, to actually fund, the police department, the fire department, streets department, those type of things. If the measure passes, if it doesn't, then of course, to balance the budget, cuts will have to come. And that is something that the city manager has stated, but it's ultimately going to come down to the fire and police chief to figure out how those cuts are going to be through their departments.
And just so you guys know, the city council has said we have put this measure on the ballot to give the residents a voice, and we will do exactly what they want us to do. So if you vote no, they will do exactly what they need to do, and they will cut all this stuff. Vote for yes. It does come with a fiscal audit committee. I just saw the city website has posted, I think it was yesterday, that they will be looking for folks. I'm not sure if they'll be appointed by each council member. I'm not sure if Doug Vogel's on here, but I met with Doug Vogel yesterday. You might see him on Orange Buzz a lot. And he is a very informed, very sharp guy. And so I'm hoping that we will have residents. One, we will hopefully, if you vote for Garrett Smith, we'll have an awesome city treasurer that has financial background and experience. And then we also need residents to step up that are educated people to be able to audit our budgets so that we make sure that these funds are being sent to public safety and also maintaining our quality of life in the city, right? When I talked to the gentleman yesterday, I said, it sounds kind of like you would rather see our city be flushed down the toilet than vote yes on Measure Z. And he says, oh, yes, that's right. So I don't know. I don't want to see our city go down the toilet. I would like to see our city thrive and be beautiful. And we also need that money so that we can build the economic development that we want to have. We need teams of people diligently working on this, and all that takes money, right? We need revenue. Creating revenue takes people. We need people.
Yeah, and what's important to note too is this does have a sunset on it of 10 years. And so what that does is allows our community to keep our city moving forward. And then it allows us a 10-year gap to improve our economy here in Orange. Since 2012, when the economic development was cut by the state of California, for all of our cities throughout, Orange kind of sat stagnant for a while, but we finally now have a economic development person in Orange, and so we need that time to help get us through so that we can kind of catch up. And then the hope is after 10 years, our city is in a far, far better place.
and then the tax just disappears. We never pay it
Yes.
again because the city took this money and did what they were supposed to do with it. And for those of you that don't know about the economic development money that we used to receive from the state, that was $40 million a year they gave us. They cut it in 2012, was 2012, right?
Right.
We had a team of 12 people at that time working on economic development. And that's when you saw, Costco coming and looking at all these different locations and trying to get in the city of Orange. And then as soon as they pulled that money, we had to get rid of all of those 12 people. So we have not had economic development in Orange till recently, which is a huge part of the problem. We need money and we need people to be able to do all this. Okay, let me get to some of your questions on here. Yeah, overtime is not part of the pension calculation one, and a lot of overtime is also paid through grant funding. So when they talk about doing DUI checkpoints, that's police officers on overtime that is paid through grants. It's the same exact thing for fire. When you see them off fighting the fires, there's a lot of overtime. So the transparent California can be a little bit deceiving because a lot of the money that they're being paid is coming from either the state or the federal government. Let's see, why are surrounding cities not having these same budget issues? Well, unfortunately, they are. So the city of Buena Park, I believe Westminster, is it Garden Grove? There is quite a few cities
Right.
this year that actually have tax measures on the ballot. Most of them are 1% or 0.75%. I don't know that anyone has 0.5%, but Orange is extremely conservative. And so a lot of the cities are in the same exact situation that we're in right now. The pricing for things have skyrocketed, right? The price of concrete to fill a pothole or pavement is much more expensive since COVID has happened. Inflation's through the roof. And so the city is having to pay more money for these things. So a lot of our surrounding cities are in the same situation, unless they have a major amusement park like Disneyland, right? Or they're Tustin or they're Irvine, where they own the majority of their land. And so they have the ability to go in and say, this is our land, and on this land, we want a Costco here. So we don't own a lot of our own land. Is that right?
That I cannot answer. I don't know that, as a fact
Specifically.
specifically.
So a lot of people always talk about like, Tustin Street and how we have all these, strip malls and massage parlors and all those things. Those are all private property. The city doesn't own those properties, so it's very hard to go in, enforce, or change some of those strip malls or build, just like we see with Orange Mall, right? It's a huge problem. It's one of our largest areas that we could have retail on, and they're trying to put housing there. Um, and we really need the sales tax. Okay, you want me to answer some more questions? Let's see. Who is watching how the police budget is spent to serve and how services are being prioritized?
Well, that's up to the police chief. He gets the budget, and obviously everything comes down through what is needed within the city when it comes down to, our crime stats, where the crime is being committed, where traffic accidents are being, are more prevalent, for individuals that are unhoused. So based on that, all that information, the chief and the command staff come up with a plan on how and where the resources are going to be deployed to,
Yeah.
within the city.
Our chief has the discretion, within certain parameters to say, hey, we have a need in this part of the community. There's an issue here. And so he can, kind of mold deployment for those issues. And so that's something that decision rests on his shoulders. That's something that he's able to strategize over, and then create a solution for those problems.
For those of you that don't know, our chief is Chief Dan Adams. He's from Orange, went to Orange High School, been here forever, and he knows Orange inside and out like the back of his hand. I think he's almost up for retirement, which is really scary. Don't retire, Chief Adams, ever, because he is so awesome and so thorough, and he is not afraid to. I love the way that he comes at things. He will over explain everything to you with an abundance of information. Sometimes he says, sorry, I over explained, because he always does. He always says he talks too much. But we have an awesome chief. So I really trust his judgment in what we're doing. And I can see the difference in all the things that have happened in our city. Somebody else also asked if we're going to benefit from OC Vibe at all. And we absolutely will. So we have a Marriott being built there. Also, just so you guys know, I watched during city council when the OC Vibe. So the owners of that property were paying for all the surveys, all the land surveys, everything. It was a ton of money. Well, the city of Orange had to approve all of the surveys and everything that was being done for them to allow it to happen. The first thing Councilman Demetriou said is, who's paying for this? And they, the guy spoke up and said, sir, Anaheim is footing the entire bill. And he was like, approved. So yes, we will definitely benefit from that. Our economic development guy, Aaron Schultz, just gave a report last night at City Council and said that they are also working with Anaheim in regards to tourism and the hotels. They want to see us succeed. So we're looking at really developing that area down there, and hopefully it happens in a hurry. We are just behind. They've already broke ground. Everybody's so excited about it. And it seems like Orange is 10 years behind on all of this, literally. So anywho, you guys, we are getting a ton of questions. Let's see. Scroll down. We got a lot of stuff happening here. Overtime will get even cheaper if taxes on overtime is removed. I don't understand that question. I understand Chapman University is private and the city and can the city benefit with funding in the future? So originally, when they were talking about the budget deficit, Chapman was not open to, at least not with Chief Demetropoulos of the fire department. They were not interested in adding a student safety fee, which they were looking at. I think at the time it was a $60 or $70 student safety fee. But now the city has gone back. They're having meetings with Chapman. And I was really happy to hear, actually, that they're open to it. They understand the situation that the city is in. And think about this. If you're sending your child to a school in a city, isn't it going to be important to you that the city is not having, an uptick in home robberies and assaults and all these other things? People that have money want to send their kids to safe schools. I saw also, so in regard to the crime report from 2022 to 2023, or maybe it was 21 to 22, we had a huge decrease. I think it was like a 30 something percent decrease or 12% decrease in commercial burglary. As well as, do you have those numbers, Colton?
I have the 22 and 23 stats. I do not
Yeah,
have the
that's what we
21.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's up and down? How are we looking?
So let's go to 23 compared to 22. So 23, we actually came down on burglaries. Residential, we went up. Thefts from vehicle, we went way down. And stolen vehicles too. So that's a direct reflection of our officers being out there, doing their job, doing the tough job, because, we're out there when nobody's out there, and we're out, trying to find the individuals that are out there doing, this crime. As an example, I mean, of the type of service that our residents receive, I'll kind of throw myself under the bus on this one. Usually on a Monday, I get a ton of voice messages from the weekend. Just 2 weeks ago, right after the fatal that we had, I had 47 phone calls,
Oh my
messages, and I spent probably a good hour, 45 minutes writing down every single question, and a report number that they were looking into. And at the end of the day, probably like 5:30, almost 6 o'clock, I can say that I returned every single phone call to those victims. And that's the type of service that our officers do every day. They go to a call and they take it as far as they can to try to rectify that issue and that problem. And, a police department, at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all responding to human calls, and we're trying to do our best. And we hire the best people out there, and that's what we want to keep here within the city. We want to be able to keep our officers here responding to your calls for service, and be able to hopefully address the problems that you may be having. So
Yeah, and as population goes up, as calls for service go up, that's tying our officers up. And so that's when it's really critical to look into. That's one of the amazing things about our department is we have the ability to be proactive instead of just strictly being reactive with our policing. So having more officers out on the street helps us to effectively reduce crime because we have officers out being proactive, out looking for individuals who are looking to commit crime and contacting them in making arrests. You know, if we end up getting budget cuts, if we end up getting a reduction in officers, or if we see individuals leave the department for other agencies because we're not competitive, then that's going to put us back on our heels potentially, and we're going to be more reactive. And that is going to directly affect the service that we can provide the community. So we want to stay where we're at. We want to keep pushing forward and progressing as a department so that we can continue to serve the community.
You guys, it's so sad. It breaks my heart. It really does. Like the fact I feel like it's impending doom. I can't sleep over this, you guys. Anyway, okay, we have a few more comments here. So Anaheim has Disneyland, Buena Park has Knott's, Newport Beach has doctors and lawyers. That's why those cities have money.
They have the beach.
Yeah, they have the beach.
Yeah.
Also, Buena Park does, in fact, have a 1% sales tax measure on the ballot. So they're in even worse shape than we are, apparently. And it says, oh, Uncle Daddy, apparently there are 10 cities that have sales tax measures on the ballot. So we're in trouble. Let's see. Doesn't matter who is paying for overtime. Show me someone in the private sector making their salary in overtime. It doesn't happen. And then also we have these guys don't sell shoes. They need to maintain staffing for our city. Sometimes that requires overtime. A lot of people in private sector don't work holidays or weekends or graveyard either. And then it says Orange has a great chief. Yes, we sure do. It says also when agencies are short staffed, paying overtime is cheaper than hiring new employees. The city is a mess because of past councils that were Republican led. Hey, you said it, Zach. Okay, I said it too. Let's see. And I will say I'm a very conservative person for the record. Overtime will get even cheaper if I don't know what that is. Okay, let's see. Yeah, the ones fighting these through Wilson Automotive and Toyota of Orange owns 30 dealerships. And let me tell you, somebody sent me an article about David Wilson's $90 million yacht and pictures of it. So I'll be posting that for you guys too, because David Wilson really cares about you guys. Apparently, he's really worried about how you guys are not going to be able to afford this. Meanwhile, he could just fund the budget for the whole city by himself. Can we just get a yacht, David Wilson? Anyway, okay. Do we have any crime stats at all? 2019 compared to 2023?
We do not have that with us.
Okay, we don't have it with us, but I will get it for you guys and definitely post it for you. Crime has gone down since we hired more officers after so many years of being short of officers. I know, and we have really amazing officers. I saw that one of our officers that left to Anaheim got himself into a bit of trouble. Dum, dum, dum. I won't go into that, but no, Chief Adams is very particular in who he hires. So they may interview 100 officers or have 100 people apply. How many out of those 100 officers actually make it all the way through?
You would be shocked the amount of, and you could say just law enforcement wide, testing can happen. You can have 100 people test, and maybe out of the 100, 20 pass the first initial, and then eventually maybe less than 5 make the final cut. And that is coming from some of our background investigators that I've had conversations with. You can have 100 people. It looks great, but at the end of the day, like I said before, the Orange Police Department has specific criteria on who we hire. We want the best individuals that we can hire to answer to those calls for service to your home for your family.
Okay, this guy's Zach on here. Okay, go up a little bit. So this guy is saying, would you be willing to give up pensions to hire more police to officers? So we talked about this with fire last week. You guys pay into pensions like you do 401ks, right? So it's not like we're just giving you all the free money. And we do have a gigantic pension bond, and we had crazy pensions also set up by previous councils. Mayor Slater was very transparent about that at the State of the City and talked about that. So I will put up some clips about everything that he said in regards to the pension bond. another guy, Zach, on here saying, why would they want to give up their pension bonds? But it's important that our officers do so much for us. They literally put their lives on the line for us. And so to say we don't want you to do well in retirement, even though you're willing to pay into it yourself. But also we went, I don't know if this is true for police officers as well, but fire went from having like the classic pension and then switching over. I believe that was like in 2012. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your guys's pensions, a pension bond? Do you want to say anything about that?
So yes, they are two different types of retirements. You have your classic that you spoke about, and then you have PEPRA, which the state of California changed that retirement. Ultimately, it is, like you said, it is not something that the city pays 100%. We do pay our fair share, and it can go up from year to year depending on what the state puts when it comes down to the actual retirement. So, but I could tell you, having been a police officer for almost 24 years, once again, they said the same thing again. We're human beings. Our bodies do break down. We do, drive in police cars, ride in motorcycles, sit behind desks. And at the end of the day, when you do get older, your body does break down. Hopefully, the one thing that we all look at is hopefully make it to retirement and make it to retirement, healthy. And that goes for, anybody in the public sector, just anybody in general that reach retirement age and be able to enjoy, the 25, 30 years that you put into your career, to be able to enjoy it at the very end. I know Colten was hired just at the cusp of starting the new retirement.
Yeah, so I'm a PEPRA member. Augie's our classic. I'm PEPRA, which means that the retirement's slightly different. He's eligible to retire when he's 50. I'm eligible to retire when I'm 57. And so there are 7 more years that I have to work as a police officer to then retire. And so just like in the private sector, there are certain companies out there that pay, maybe a certain percentage into the employee's 401k plan or whatever the retirement plan is, and then the employee also pays into it. Our police officers, we pay into our own retirement throughout the years of service. Retirement's critical for all of us. It's when I reach the age 57, I hope I'm healthy enough to live long after that and enjoy retirement after so many years of service.
If you're on a motorcycle at 57, I'm coming to stop you. You can't be doing that for that long. You better move into a different department.
How old were you?
Potentially lots of back issues.
How old were you when you started? How old were you when you started law enforcement?
When I started, I was 23.
So 23. Wow. So do the math. How many years do you have to be in a police uniform in some way, shape,
34
or other?
Years.
Correct.
My math is still doing good, even on flu medication. Okay, so we got another guy in here. Why should cops give up their pensions? They don't pay into Social Security, and they pay 12 to 14% of their salary into their pension. So that's another thing to think about. Again, don't think that the city covers the entire nut. That's another thing to think about when you see their salaries online. You see police officers being hired, and the starting pay is $80,000 to $90,000. Well, right off the bat, if 12 to 14% of that is going into their retirement, and then you also take into account paying 30% for taxes, you're already looking at about $50,000 a year. Is that right? Well, that's very sad. And that is not a high enough wage to be able to sustain and live in Orange, right? Right. So it's very, very expensive to live here. It's expensive to live anywhere right now. I have family in Corona too. And then we got T-Girl on here. She says, these officers don't get paid enough doing what they do and what they put up with. You are appreciated. Thank you. So I had talked about this before. I went on my ride along on a Monday morning, and because I'm a chicken, and I'm a mom and I have to go. I was like, I don't want to do this. And everybody was going on Friday and Saturday nights. And that Monday morning was horrific. It was 9 a.m. Our first call was to that Marshall's for the guy stealing that stuff. Next call was to Hart Park with 8 unhoused people in a giant fight that we had to break up. Another one was a call to, I believe it was Chalk or one of the hospitals, because there was a 14-year-old boy that wanted to wanting to hurt police officers or saying he wanted to kill police officers and trying to OD on fentanyl. So clearly having a medical issue, which was very sad to see. Anyway, and then we had a car flipped over blocking the intersection getting on the 5 freeway over on Catella. And that was within 2.5 hours. He had to drop me off early because he had another emergency call he couldn't go on. But it was back-to-back calls every 15 minutes. I couldn't imagine being on a 10-hour shift. I mean, you're just like running. Like, and it was crazy too, is you are running, and a lot of times you don't know what you're running towards, right? Until you get there.
Correct.
Yes, I mean, I can tell you, I have had in my almost 24 years multiple situations that you just explained. You know, from traffic accidents to individuals trying to either hurt themselves or hurt others, individuals with guns, with knives, individual trying to commit suicide. Unfortunately, traffic collisions is just something that happens everywhere. And yes, you know, and we get there. Just as an example, one traffic collision can take out the entire 10 officers that we have working, you know, on any type of shift. And you know, now what happens to other emergency calls? They'll still have to respond, but now that just going to take a little bit longer. So, with the lack of our, you know, with the lack of numbers, that's what's going to end up happening. The things that are going to suffer are time responses to our calls. So at the end of the day, individuals need to be in police cars and motorcycles and detective desks, you know, riding bikes, you know, being able to address all the situations that we have in the city. So
Yeah, what's important to note too is we respond to any call. There is no call that's too small for the Orange Police Department to respond out to. So, you know, from the most minor calls, you know, maybe a traffic enforcement call or a welfare check call, all the way up to the most gruesome and horrific scenes that you know, you can come across. We respond to it all, and you never know when you come on shift that day what you're going to be tasked with handling.
I know, and I've seen some of the going to the academy and listening to all those dispatch calls. Oh my gosh, it was horrific. I hated that. That was my worst. I would not go through that portion of it again. And my next door neighbor is actually Orange Police Dispatch, who you guys know. And what's ironic is like, was it like 4 or 5 of our dispatchers? How many do we have? Like, have like 8 to 10 dispatchers, or how many do we have?
we usually have, I think we're slated to about, I believe, 16. But
Okay.
yeah, but we have had some.
Everybody got pregnant at the same time, literally. And so I was seeing these advertisements. There was like 6 of the girls pregnant, and they were like desperately hiring dispatchers, anyone available, but you just can't hire anyone for that job, right? That is a very tough job. Okay. Oh, here's a random thing. So there's a woman who has been experiencing strange activity of people dressed in all black going to her barn in Orange Park Acres. They disperse into a ravine and they come back after the police department leaves. Have you guys heard anything about this?
No,
I personally have not.
no, I have not. And Orange Park Acres could be sheriff's jurisdiction or our jurisdictions too.
Oh,
So
okay. Depending on where it is.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So this guy's saying, who are you going to call, a teacher when you need help? No, not unless it's with math. Okay, this is a really important question, and I'm so glad you asked this, Mac. Please tell us the difference between a cop stash and a fire stash.
Oh, I don't know. That's well,
Police stashes don't catch fire.
true.
You don't say.
When you see a police officer with mustache, especially towards the end of the year, we have, you know, just like we have the breast awareness, you know, cancer awareness in September. For men is in November, and we try to raise the awareness when it comes to the cancers that men experience, you know, throughout their lives. So the difference in our stashes tend to be just a little bit more tamed, because I've seen some of our firemen and they're just gnarly mustaches that we unfortunately cannot grow that mustache to that extent. So, but we'll give them a run for their money when we can. So.
Give them a run for their money. This pyro guy, the cops don't have as good of a stash because they aren't paid enough to maintain them. Pay these guys. Okay, let's get to another couple more questions, and I think these guys got to head off and go fight some crime. We have had great experiences with Orange PD, and we love our officers. Me too. Do you guys provide ride-alongs? So let's say a regular citizen, wanted to get more information and get involved with the police department. Do you guys, if people request a ride-along, is that something the police department's open to?
I believe you can ask for that once you just went through the Citizens Academy.
Yeah, I would say you have to
Yes.
go to the Citizens Academy to do the ride-along, right?
Correct.
And that Citizens Academy, how many nights was it? I think it was like 6 to 8 nights.
Correct.
They were on Wednesdays. And it was from about, was it like 6 to 9?
6 to 9.
Yeah. And when I say you cover so much, it's insane. Literally everything from the gang unit, drug unit, to SWAT team, what they deal with. What else? I mean, it's everything.
Investigations,
Yeah.
traffic, bike team, domestic violence, sexual assault, crime prevention, our what else? A records division, along with our
Bike and heart team.
bike and heart team. Correct. Yeah.
I mean, the amount our police officers do, it was crazy. And I think I harassed you a ton in that class because I wanted him. Why can't you shut down these massage parlors? Okay, let's see. That was somebody had a question. Scroll up a little bit. This is a good question on here. How many dogs do we have? How many canines do we have on the police force? And when can we use them? What do we use them for?
So we have 3.
Well, we actually have 4.
4. That's right.
We do have Lily. She is our our newest ad. She's our police service dog. But as far as our canines that are in the field, we have 3.
And they can be used from any type of high felony traffic stops, where we get individuals and stolen vehicles. They end up pulling over. They're able to be brought out and possibly used. They're used to, track individuals. They're very, it's
Effective.
a tool, a very effective tool. I can tell you personally, I have been an agitator. That's the guy that puts on the bite suit, and have been bitten multiple times. Even with the bite suit, it does hurt. I would not suggest to run from a police canine. Those dogs are just amazing animals. And we love them because they do such a great service for the community when it comes to keeping us safe. But also, they work great when having individuals, give up without having to use any type of force. Just by them sheerly being there and barking, individuals do give up. And that's a force that we're not, we don't have to use against them. So.
Yeah, extremely intimidating without having to use force or weapons or also so there was is it that you guys won't send a dog out if somebody has a gun? Is that right? Is that somebody, if I mentioned that?
Yes, it really will come down to the canine handler and usually the highest ranking officer there to be able to figure out what time they're able to use it. We're not going to send the animal there to go and get shot. We will do everything that we can to diffuse the situation without having to use force, or sending the dog in if somebody does have a weapon, like that. So
yeah, our canines are a tool that we have available to us, just like many of our other tools. And so it really depends on that specific call. There could be a variety of tactics that we try to employ. So it kind of all depends on the circumstances.
I remember during the Citizens Academy, the example that they gave is that there was a dog. You guys needed to go into a building and to search for drugs. And so a dog was deployed, and the amount of time it would have taken human beings to find drugs in this building, because they believe there was drugs being sold out of it. And it was a huge, giant warehouse, and the dog was able to find it almost immediately. And it's things like fentanyl and things like that that are being imported into our country or here in our country. And so canines are just much more efficient at doing that. And I also want to give a huge shout out to the Elks 1475, because they purchased your Lily, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
So they gifted Lily, who is a support dog for the police department, because they go through so much, and just like fire, they need that support. So we have Lily and we have Ember, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, totally off topic. Where do I find out the street closures for treats in the streets? So the street closures are exactly the same as street fair. We have the Meridian barriers, which are extremely safe. We have officers that will be out there, undercover officers. So my number one goal in funding all of this was to make sure, no matter what, I did not want to cut public safety, because we're going to have probably 8,000 people out there and kids. I absolutely refuse to compromise safety for the event. So we've rented all the barriers that could, I don't know about stop a freight train, but stop something. And then also we have police, fire, everything out there for you guys. So the street closures are same as street fair, if you're familiar with that. Let's see. Any other questions on here? Let's see. We got some good ones. What's the number of police officers out in the field? Okay. Out in the field, are you guys hiring police officers academy to graduate ladder? Oh, so we talked about this already. It's about, let's say 12 to 10 to 12, 10
10 to
13.
12 usually. That's a decent number on a day shift. And like I said, it could be as many as 40 officers that could respond to any type of emergency. Let's say we can, as an example, when we had the fires out in the East End, detectives, we were out and, evacuating people. So like there was nobody left inside the station. So at any time we can go ahead and respond to any type of emergency. So.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything you guys want to say? Anything that you think that we didn't cover? I feel like it's so much, right?
Well, I think on behalf of the City of Orange Police Officers Association, we do urge you, and we hope that you vote yes on Measure Z. It is going to impact the police department and safety services within the City of Orange, both police and fire. So for any of you who are out there that just want a little bit more information, the city website has great information posted up for anybody to see. So we'd encourage you guys to check out the city website, and then also check out our pages, both police and fire. We've got a lot of information up as well. We are city employees. We love our community. We love serving our community, and we want to continue to be an effective tool for our community. So with that, we do urge you to vote yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I can tell you, being here for 20 years or almost 20 years, coming from an LA County agency. At that time when I lateraled over here, there was an attack on police officers, and I was working the East End, and I had this car that kept trying to catch up to me, and eventually we had a red light, and I immediately was very defensive, thinking this individual was trying to do something bad to me. And he begins to wave at me. And so I lower my window and I, being defensive, can I help you? And he looks at me and he goes, I just want to thank you for what you do. And that was just like, whoa, just threw me off, because that's not a regular occurrence from where I came from. Now, as an example, today we had a meeting for this Instagram live, Colten and I, and we're walking back to our cars. There was 3 boys that were getting ready to catch the bus, and what's the first thing that they did? They said wanted to say hi. They took a picture with Colten on his motorcycle. That's the type of officers that you get here. You're getting personal. You're getting true. People here. There's not going to be a time that we're going to give you a cold shoulder. We have provided service to the police, to the city, to the city residents, to the city, visitors. We want people that live here, that come and shop here, that have businesses here, They come and enjoy, our restaurants and our bars to feel safe. And the only way that we can do that is we can continue to fully fund, our public services. If we do have to cut our public services, unfortunately, some of our officers may, our positions may be frozen, may be cut. That I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. That is something for our command staff and our police chief to come up with what's going to take to be able to assist the city in hopefully getting to a balanced budget. So I encourage you to vote yes on Measure Z. Understand this money is not just for police, it's not just for fire, it's for every service that is truly giving what the city is today, a full service city. You call any department, you get a phone call back from an actual person. You call a police department, you get an answer. You call the fire department, you get a fire department showing up. So I plead with you, please vote yes on Measure Z for our city.
Yeah, and I think our ultimate goal is we don't want to see city services decrease. That's city services on the police department side, the fire side, public works side, throughout our community. We don't want to see those services decrease. We want well-maintained streets and we want very safe streets. And the only way that we can achieve that goal in this current situation is to get Measure Z passed and then let our economy grow over the next 10 years. So this is the one and most effective tool to help us do that.
Thank you guys so much. I just want to tell you, all the people on here saying thank you to you. Finally, thank you for saying this. Yes, on Measure Z. These guys are our heroes. And another woman just said, we love our Orange Police Department. My kids love to wave and always get a wave back. It's so true. Thank you for all you do, you guys. Let's see. Well done, officers. Stay safe. And again, the idealistic picture of the OPD being painted here does not match the experiences I've had. I don't know what you're talking about because I have never had anything but amazing experiences. When I started all this and we had crime in our neighborhood, my husband was very not wanting me to do this actually. And I said, no, we live in a crazy world. We have tons of crime in our neighborhood. I want every police officer in the city to know my baby's names. And I can't tell you, they do. We walk the streets. Hi, Fade. Well, anyway, I should say my kids' names, but they all say hi. And it's amazing. So they're saying, great job, guys. Thank you so much for absolutely everything that you guys do. Thank you so much for being willing to come on here. And yeah, thank you for supporting our city and with the kind of attitude Chief Adams says all the time that they don't call us, you guys call us your customers and you really do treat us that way. So thank you. It's much different experience. I own a business. We're in Santa Ana. And let me tell you, it's a very different experience. You could have a robbery happening and they just drive by and wave. So that would never happen here. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. We're going to hop off here. If you guys have any questions, please drop them in the comments. Please, I'll be happy to answer. I'll be happy to answer. And I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow at Treats in the Streets. We have the most insane amount of candy. I mean, Ring Pop, Snickers, Twix, passing out candy to all the businesses. They couldn't believe that we had this much candy. Also, the OC Ghostbusters are going to be there. They're bringing a Star Wars car, and the Ecto one's going to be out there. You know, I love my Proton Pack over here. I love the Ghostbusters. We also have a gigantic 50-foot Star Wars obstacle course, as well as games, huge, giant inflatable games for the kids. We have free ice cream, free dog treats, a doggy costume contest, a kids costume contest. Anyway, the list goes on and on with activities. It starts at 4 p.m. tomorrow. There'll be plenty of parking throughout the neighborhoods or on the parking garage on Lemon. Police will not be enforcing parking in that area, just like during street fair. You guys can park anywhere. And we're so excited to see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Brandy.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Night, night, guys.